Hello, and welcome to my talk about revealing the truth about permanent makeup removal. Something, and the way that I'm going to be describing this to you, is a topic that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about. I've tried to do it in different ways over the past, but I've never quite explained it like this. One of the things that you hear me talking about a lot with Botched Ink is that it's different. One of the things that you're going to be hearing me talking about or explaining is soggy bottoms and minimising inflammation and irritation. So let's get started. The topic basically is about skin, life and death matters when you're actually talking about removal. Because whatever you're doing to get that pigment released from its encapsulation in the skin, you need to do something to that skin to make that pigment come out, or in the case of laser, go in. Nobody talks about the other things that the client has to deal with afterwards, because when first we're doing a treatment and tattooing in the solution, we don't really get to see, unless we've personally experienced the treatment ourselves, what the client actually has to deal with over the next coming days and weeks, managing what happened to their skin after you did the treatment on them. So when you are actually talking about this to the client and actually getting them to understand what you're going to be doing to their skin, isn't it actually quite important to be able to explain it to a client truthfully? Get their acceptance of whatever aftercare needs to be done. Now, some removal aftercare methods are incredibly simple. Botched ink aftercare method is incredibly simple. Some other aftercare methods are incredibly involving for the client. I'm not going to particularly go into that, because what we're focusing on here really is, during a treatment, when we are working on that client, what we are literally seeing is the skin's immediate reaction. The true impact of what we've done or implanted only becomes clear in the days and weeks after as the skin heals. Ingredient secrecy compromises your ability to predict results, manage aftercare, and ensure client satisfaction. Ingredient secrecy in 2025, when we're actually tattooing in a product that can have quite a destructive effect on the skin in some cases, to not actually reveal those ingredients is just wrong, in my view. And I'm sure in your views too, really. So why aren't we insisting, when these companies are not revealing the ingredients or the percentages that are in their I don't mean total percentages, but when you're talking in the case of acids, is it a 10% acid? Is it a 20% acid? 30, 40% acid? We don't know, or do we know? So what you're going to hear me talking about quickly is the Botched Ink difference, and it's all about skin preservation, minimising inflammation, irritation. You can read that yourself. But what I wanted to describe is there is a very fundamental way that Botched Ink is actually affecting the skin that is completely unique to Botched Ink. Okay? I have never heard of any other removal method that has the effect on skin that Botched Ink does. Okay, so let me explain. Botched Ink causes something called apoptosis. Now, I like that word. Apoptosis is the body's natural, organised way of removing damaged or old cells without causing inflammation, i.e. your daily skin turnover. Skin dries out, flattens, dies as it gets, live skin into the deeper layers, gets thinner and thinner and more dead, and then sheds. Yeah, that's apoptosis. Okay. Botched Ink mimics this process for gentle, effective pigment removal. And as I've said, this pigment removal method is unique to Botched Ink. So look at my brick walls. Aren't my brick walls much thinner as they when we go back to my previous nice little brick walls there, just think of the brick walls as my skin's surface. The brick wall is the skin's surface. When you're looking at the bricks, they're the skin cells. And when you're looking at the mortar that holds the wall together, that's either holding your skin cells together or it's actually holding the pigment as well. One of the two, I'll explain as we kind of go through. So what Botched Ink actually does is it dries out those skin cells really quickly. So Botched Ink is forcing your skin into apoptosis. It's natural removing what it does, like I said before, with the daily skin turnover. It's causing that natural effect on your skin with no inflammation and irritation. That's what Botched Ink does to the skin. It's pretty great because all of that skin that's holding on to those pigment cells is drying out and removing in a non-inflammatory way. Acids cause coagulative necrosis. So skin peels like glycolic and TCA, the acid strength is controlled, and when you're doing a skin peel, it's neutralised for predictability, shedding and healing. However, in permanent makeup removal, tattooing acids can penetrate deeply, causing uncontrolled damage, irritation, inflammation and slow healing. Look at my poor brick wall. You know, you've tattooed in the acid and it's causing a skin peel effect. If you are only working quite superficially with quite a mild acid, that's going to cause quite a mild skin peel. And if that pigment was in those superficial surface layers, that's why you're going to get the nice removal with these glycolic acids. Because like I just said, the pigment is held in the skin layers that's superficial and the skin peel effect has removed that skin. However, if you're then working with pigment that's deeper in the skin, you've got to then work deeper. And skin peels like glycolic and TCAS, they weren't intended to be tattooed in, were they? So you are having these acids penetrating deeply, causing uncontrolled, unneutralised damage, irritation, inflammation. When those scabs, and they will be scabs, promise you, when those scabs heal away, the likelihood is, especially if you've needed to work deeper, that client is going to have that red-coloured healing skin to be dealing with for the next couple of weeks or to be looking at for the next couple of weeks. And aftercare risks of clients wanting to put makeup on that area and the risk of causing granulomas and healing difficulties just because of that prolonged inflammation, irritation and slow healing from different types of acids. So coming on to Botched Ink again, haven't I said that the Botched Ink mimics apoptosis, the body's natural cell death and turnover, for gentle inflammation-free pigment removal? Its skin peel action contrasts with aggressive acid-based solutions that cause deeper, unpredictable damage. So yes, you can actually tattoo in Botched Ink quite deeply, right into those deeper pigment layers without causing inflammation and irritation, because when that skin has been soaked well enough, and the Botched Ink method, won't go too much into this, but the Botched Ink method focuses far more on soaking than needling passes, multiple passes. It really is more like a serum that Botched Ink really soaks into the skin. So when that skin has been fully saturated with Botched Ink, it's going to dry out those skin cells super quickly. And I kind of do mean within an hour or two. So that skin really quickly dies. The body doesn't get a chance, with Botched Ink I'm talking about, the body doesn't get a chance to do its normal wound healing process. And a wound healing process is swelling, wetness, inflammation, irritation. That's the body's wound healing process to a typical wound. And now we're tattooing in acids. Or alkaline powders. alkaline powders, if you're looking at any type of removal solution that's got a creamy colour, or a powdery white kind of colour, look on the ingredients if it's provided to see that you'll typically find calcium oxide, magnesium oxide and zinc oxide on the list in the ingredients. Now, of these, 2 of them are serious effect on the skin. Now, calcium oxide is used in plaster, it's used in mortar. There's my brick wall again. Look at all that goo, right? Calcium oxide is actually also called quicklime, if ever you've heard of it. Quicklime is actually used, or was used, or still used, to dissolve bodies, to dissolve human bodies. Calcium oxide dissolves tissue into a liquidy, gooey mess, okay? Look at my poor brick wall. PMU removal solutions and then tattooing it into skin. That's why they include the zinc oxide to mop up some of the extra goo. However, over the coming days, so you've tattooed in this solution that's full of something that breaks down skin tissue and something that's all thick powders, and you're tattooing it into the skin. Now, over the coming days, this is going to dry into a thick, hard clump of powder, pigment, and dried out goo. It's going to form a thick scab as deeply as it was tattooed. Now, what you have to remember is the surface of the skin is going to dry out quicker than the deeper layers, which are still going through their inflammation and irritation process to however deeply it was tattooed. But eventually, if the client doesn't get their skin wet, it's going to dry into this hard, thick clump of scab, which now needs to heal out of the skin. So where what you might be looking at on the surface looks actually just quite thin as a scab, over the coming days and week or so, that scab is going to get thicker and thicker as that hard clump of powder, or not so hard clump of powder, grows now out of the skin. And can you imagine now if that client does get that skin wet, or if that hard clump of goo and powder and pigment does actually get caught and flicked off too soon, you've now got an open wound. And now we've got a new generation, and a scary generation, in the rush for fast tattoo removal and fast permanent makeup removal. Solutions have got even more, whatever word you want to use, strong, I'll use that word, because now they're mixing acids and alkaline into hybrid solutions. So now you've got a solution where you've got some tissue that's getting dried and some tissue dissolves and liquefies. But here the problem, so I've already told you about the alkaline solutions and the deep, thick, hard scab, and that's just with an alkaline solution. But now you've mixed it with acids, and we've now amplified the damage, or the potential damage, because these processes are all happening at different depths of the skin. So these acids and alkaline ingredients that are having an irritating, inflammatory effect on the skin are now actually sealed over with the hard surface, and God knows what's going on underneath. God knows what's going on underneath. And the amplified risk of the scab slipping, because we're still going to have a soggy bottom from this dissolved liquefied tissue. Because in those solutions that are acids and alkalines, how much of the mopping up powders have we got in there for all that liquid underneath that hard scab? It's proper scary. So coming on to my next one, Botched Ink versus... Oh, hello, Dixon. That's my dog. He's clearly something's alerted him outside. Dixon's a Tibetan Terrier. You'll see if you look on my feed, I'm sure you'll find pictures of Dixon. He's beautiful. So Botched Ink versus Lift and other saline solutions. So I'm not just picking on one company here. I'm talking about Botched Ink is completely different to all other types of saline solution. Typical saline causes wet and dry necrosis. Typical saline solutions have the effect on the skin. I'm not saying that salines are acid or alkaline, because they're not, it's saline, but the effect that they have on the skin is a surface hardening, and if that tattoo that has been worked is deeper than superficial, you are now having that soggy bottom effect from the wet necrosis, okay? What's happening there is you can end up clearing the surface of the skin and still leaving that deep pigment underneath looking grey. And why is that definitely happening more with other types of saline solution? And indeed with your acids and your alkaline solutions? Because, okay, more so with your acid than your alkaline, that they're causing so much... you're having to do so much work, multiple passes to get the product into the skin, that the body's already started its wound response. And what the body's wound response is swelling and wetness. So when you're doing multiple passes of the skin and it's swelling and it's getting wet and you're then trying to do a soak at the end, okay, think about it logically. If that skin is already wet and it's already swollen or swelling, how much solution is actually getting to those deeper layers? Because they will have swollen, won't they? It's like you're putting a needle hole in, and the minute you pull the needle hole out, it starts to close up at the bottom because it's got all these not external, because they're internal, forces on the bottom of the hole. The solution's not going to soak into the depths because you've got the wound healing response, the wound response happening. So when you've got that, isn't it even then more likely, especially when you've got the soggy bottoms and the slower healing and the slower drying out of the skin, because don't forget, Botched Ink dries out that skin literally within a couple of hours. And other types of saline, it might actually be, you might be mopping up the liquids on the surface for a couple of days and washing those brows for a couple of days to prevent the thick scabs. And you've then got a soggy bottom when that surface is now starting to look dry. Who knows what's going on in the bottom with all the inflammation and wetness. So again, Botched Ink mimics apoptosis and avoids all this wet and dry skin, avoids all this inflammation and irritation, keeps hold of the pigment, that it's the pigment that's in the skin that we've completely soaked with Botched Ink to dry it out. Botched Ink is a very, very different and unique kind of saline. And as I've said before, there are no other removal solutions on the market that do or mimic apoptosis on the skin, that really quickly drying out response. I love that word. Right. So, and then we got laser. Laser, what that's doing is the laser uses different filters to see different colours. The laser pulses heat and shatter the pigments into smaller fragments, which then gets absorbed by the body over the coming days, weeks and months, okay? So different filters, typically the 1064 filter is the one that most laser technicians have, and it's easy and impressive to remove the black pigment. But as we should know, once you remove black, brown pigment contains other colours, red, orange, yellow, not necessarily orange unless you've been doing loads of corrections or that client's had loads of corrections, or how many people for years and years and years and people are still doing it. I used to do it, mixing loads of orange in to make those dark colours not turn brown, not turn too grey too quickly, and we're still doing it. And unfortunately, laser has a big old difficulty removing orange pigment. Laser has a big old difficulty removing the yellow pigment. This is why poor clients, after laser removal treatments, are being left with orange and yellow brows. And then what are we then doing but covering them up? And I think that's bad. Okay, to cover up a client with beautiful nano brows or beautiful feathered hair strokes or something like that, you know, and you've left that remaining pigment, and you've probably put in more yellow pigment, you probably put in more orange pigment, you know, and what's going to then happen, unfortunately, and I'm not saying you, picking on you, but I'm talking about you as a collective industry. What's then going to happen if you needed to put green in, another colour that laser doesn't like? Okay, what you've then done in covering over brows that have had a laser treatment, you are literally preventing your client having successful laser treatments in the future. Now, obviously coming back to the skin effect that laser has, clearly, no, it's not clear. Laser tattoo removal is 20% training, 20% machine, 20% machine and training, and 80% the technician's knowledge and experience. Okay, there are some wonderful things that laser techs can do with pigment, and the comment to quickly say is every time, and I am kind of going off topic a little bit here, but it's a beef that I've got. Every time that a laser technician works on permanent makeup brows, they are experimenting because they don't know what's in there. That's why they do a patch test to see what colours are being revealed and what filters are best to use. But every time a laser tech works on brows, they are experimenting, and what they do next is based on their experience and knowledge as a technician and their experience and knowledge of the machine that they're using. How long does that take? You've liked my brick analogies, hopefully, or at least the brick pictures, and it's all down to where I happen to live at the moment. There's lots of beautiful old brick walls, and I just love looking at old bricks. But literally every removal method interacts differently with the skin and leaves a different effect on the pigment. Some pulling all of the pigment out. Non-laser methods typically remove all colours each session. It's not then non-laser methods, whatever non-laser method is non-colour selective. So understanding these effects is crucial for making informed client-focused decisions. Methods that cause unnecessary trauma compromise both results and client satisfaction. So to just give you a quick recap of what I mean by that, do you not think that the treatments that are completely aggressive on the skin, that cause maximum or intended loads, unintended loads of inflammation and irritation, do you not think that that skin to unknown depths has now been completely compromised, okay, through inflammation and irritation? Do you not think that that alone is going to do the removal? Because the answer is yes. Yeah, that alone, the harshness and the severity of the treatment can remove the pigment, okay? What I then so often see with some of these harsh methods and people putting up results photos is so many times the centre of the brow's been removed and they've now got a halo because the technician didn't work to the edge, you know? And it's because that client would then have to be dealing with bigger brows, you know, and it's just kind of during that inflammation and irritation process, especially if there was a load of carbon in that pigment. And remember me saying about the soggy bottoms. Oh yeah, soggy bottoms. The soggy bottoms is good, and carbon pigment. It's going to blow. It's going to blow in the skin. So maybe you did go to the edge, you know. But that carbon in the skin with that soggy bottom is going to spread It's what carbon pigment does in the skin. That's one of the reasons why, because Botched Ink is so good at getting into the skin so quick and so easily. That's another reason why Botched Ink is not good for eyeliner, and it's not good for body tattoos, especially black tattoos, because Botched Ink soaks in so easily and so well. That is why we only need to do one pass. So it's almost like people saying it's great for eyeliner, it's great for eyeliner. Well, it's only great for eyeliner because you've got to force it in there. Oh, enough. Enough, Lisa. You'll hear more from me about some touchy subjects and some truth. So hopefully you've enjoyed some revelations and truths about the permanent makeup removal process and treatments and what the effect for the life and the death of the skin. And when you just sit there and think about it, wouldn't you want your removal treatments to be gentle and effective and give consistent results? I think I'm going to end there.